Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of ILLflips. I'm joined by Brian from ILLstrips. Today I wanted to have a look at my collection of Richard Corben Underground comics. Everything from his work from Last Gasp, Kitchen Sink, Rip-Off Press, and then onto his Warren publishing stuff, Creepy, Eerie, 1984, starting from the 70s and working through the 80s. I thought it'd be nice just to have a look at some of the covers and maybe a little bit of the interiors, and show you the humble beginnings of Richard Corben. Obviously the man went on to have a huge career in many fields, and working for Marvel Max with the Punisher, Ghost Rider, Luke Cage, Rob Zombie doing Bigfoot, and Mike Mignola's Hellboy. So big career, but yeah, these are his original underground comics. So I thought it'd be fun to go through these. We'll start off with Grimwit issue 1, which is his classic busty ladies on the front. Horror Lore is the horror host of this Grimwit series, kind of inspired by the hosts of EC Comics, I guess. This issue has two stories inside, one with kind of a werewolf story about the Beast of Wolfton. You can see our Horror Lore host here. Really nice Richard Corben black and white art on display. A lot of tones, screen tones throughout. And I guess before he started to do full color airbrush, so it's always nice to check this stuff out. And these are just excuse me, these are just horror stories, good for this time of year. First one's a very simple werewolf tale. And the second story is called Necromancer. It's been a while since I've read these, but again, I'm kind of more in it for the art. And here's Horror Lore at the end, telling you to wait for issue 2. There's a nice illustration on the back. I like this guy with the big nose, great designs. And here's Skull Comics. He also did some work with Skull Comics, and maybe I can do another video on those at some point. This is issue 2 of Grimwit, and it's the first appearance of his signature character, Den. So we see him on the cover here, and then the big lizard, which will be another trope of Corben's early work, Horror Lore, and of course the busty ladies being another trope of his early work, and probably his work throughout his career. And he's not alone on this one. This also has a story by Jackson, another one of the underground artists of the 70s, which is really nice. It's kind of an Aztec tale, obviously quite horrific, also in full color. But this is your Den. This is the first appearance of Den. This one's nice actually, because I rediscovered, or I discovered that this one is signed by the man. So that's kind of cool. Den has obviously just been reprinted by Dark Horse in these lovely new hardback collections, which I have here. So actually it could be kind of nice just to do a little side-by-side comparison. Side by side might be a little much of an ask. Oh, there we go. So you can see that the newsprint obviously kind of absorbs the color in a very different way, but it has quite a nice effect to it also. This is obviously very nice too, but it's much more saturated, and there's subtle differences, some good, maybe some not so good. So it's nice to have the two versions, I suppose. And this is obviously also reprinted in Metal Hurlant and heavy metal later on in his career. He would send his work on to Mobius, Droulet, and Dionne, and they loved his work. So he was pretty much in most of the early issues of Metallo. So yeah, I won't go flipping through every page of this, but you can see the differences. But this is a nice artifact to have, being Den's first appearance, and I think it looks pretty well from the get-go. I'm actually just reading that hardback at the moment. I've read bits of Den over the years in different publications, but it's nice to read it as a whole. It's actually a really good fantasy story, so I'm happy to hear that there's more of those coming out over the next while too. And Den's adventures in Neverwhere. Here's your big lizard creature from, I don't know if they're the same, I guess not, but possibly. And then there's another damsel in the dragon dress, which is much more cartoony style for Corben here. These kind of weird cartoon dragons. The full color in this issue, which is, I suppose, is a pretty big step up from the first issue of Grimwit. And then a nice Jackson illustration on the back, which is cool. This is Up from the Deep, with this amazing jungle cover with the cosmos peeping through the lettering of the deep. This story, these two little creatures, appeared, I think, in Metallo. I think before Den. I think it's in the first issue of Metallo. And actually, this cover was the inspiration for the third issue of my own comic book series, Cosmic Slop. So sometimes I like to do a homage for covers, and I just always loved this cover, so I wanted to do something inspired by it. So you can see the swiping going on here, but I was happy how it turned out. And it's nice to try and work with this. He's great with color, purples, greens, all colors I quite like. So that was a big inspiration for me during the making of that. And this is more of an anthology, so there is other cartoonists in here, but we'll have a look at some of the Corben stuff. Again, all black and white. And this is with Rip-Off Press, one of the underground publications of the 70s. Some more Jackson, much more colorful, quite psychedelic. And then there's a full color Richard Corben story here of, I think it's like Sea Dopai. It's a nice little tale of these two. Well, it's kind of an unfortunate little tale of these two little creatures who are having a bit of a love affair, feeding each other grapes, frolicking through the jungle, evading different hungry creatures. But unfortunately they get eaten. No, they nearly get eaten, and then just as they've escaped, these other much larger giant creatures squash. I think they squash maybe the lady. Yeah. So poor Sidope is left alone. Maybe it's Ope. I can't remember how to pronounce it, but I always liked that story. I think it's nicely drawn and the colors are great. Obviously the guys from Metallo won't like it enough to publish it in their French publication. A couple of other artists artists in here. Again, I'll just focus on Corben really for this issue. And there's always a nice use of the back covers with these Underground comics also. This is Fever Dreams from Kitchen Sink, Dennis Kitchen 70s publication, and I think this is maybe a first printing, and it's got this really interesting kind of airbrush cover with this little creature and this blurred out background. Great colors. And Janice Renard writing in here, who will be a long time writer, collaborator with Corben. And again, this is more of the same, just kind of horror, fantasy stories, and sci-fi also. Janice Renard and Corben. To Meet the Faces You Meet is the name of this little story, and it's a sci-fi set in space with this little robot creature who's, I suppose, helping to fix the ship. And with many of these kind of 10 pages of Corben, something goes wrong. It doesn't usually end up well for probably the astronauts in this situation. Yeah, I bought a bunch of these during lockdown, the different Corben Undergrounds. So it's been a while since I've read them, but they're always fun. This is Rolf, Corben's rip-off press. It's kind of a standalone story. I first found a book version of this in Paris. It's the story of a dog who, becomes a man, and then these orc creatures are attacking the kingdom where he's from, and he's got to defend his princess, and it's pretty good. It's a nice black and white story, cool drawing, bizarre subject matter. Rolf is our hero, and he does save the day in the end. Be nice maybe if this got a republication with the Dark Horse reprints, hardbacks that are coming out, because this is a good one. This was the cover for the French version I have. I think it's on my shelf somewhere. That's around somewhere. The French version I have is much bigger than this also, so it would serve well to be at a larger scale. And there he is on the back, Rolf. And then this is Fantagor. This is kind of the precursor to Fantagor Press, which will be his own self-published series. But he had Rip in Time and Mutant World, Son of Mutant World, and then some other horror in the dark. But this is with Last Gasp, so there's number 1. I think there's 4 maybe in this series. I have 2 of them. Black and white art again in this first issue. And I think there possibly is other artists in here. Kind of sci-fi horror stuff, the usual with Corben's early subject matter. Some really dark printings there of, I suppose, his different zip tones and screen tones on display. Yeah, there's different artists in here too. Very nice. This story is by Herb Arnold. Star Armitage. And then a bit more Corben toward the back. I think it looks like he's using airbrush here also. Sometimes that looks a bit, I don't know, it doesn't really work that well in the black and white. It just gets a bit too dark. But it looks great when he does it in color. And I always love this this back cover of this alien. And these, it almost looks like he has kind of a cult following around him. This is number 3, the pretty cool cover also. I think there's some color, yeah. So you have a nice Corben greens and purples. The story's called The Temple. And then you have another one of these stories by Herb Arnold. Some strange stuff going on here, which is pretty interesting. Use of color. It almost looks like they're tag teaming this one, Corben and Herb Arnold, but I don't think so, maybe. It's Corben's drawing the cover. I don't know. Seems to be 2 Corben stories in each of these, and then 1 Herb Arnold. This is kind of almost early mutant world stuff in this post-apocalyptic landscape with giant rats and vermin to hunt and feed on. I like the color in these though, they're kind of, you know, very 70s. But nice blues, purples, greens, orange. And they work well in the newsprint. They have a certain charm. But you can see how much more it pops on this glossier paper. I don't know who that is on the back. It's Corben-esque, but I don't think it is him. And there's Anomaly, again, this reoccurring theme of the kind of busty lady and the giant lizards. And I think this may be again 4 of these. They pop up every now and then. I think the others maybe have black and white covers. I just really like that cover. It's great lettering and a great image. Nice colors. It's Alice in Wonderland, I guess. Corben doing Alice in Wonderland, and he would go on to do a lot of kind of stories like that. More classic stuff. This is not Corben. This is weird because there's a big caterpillar in this too. It's almost keeping in theme with the Alice in Wonderland, but I don't think so. A sci-fi story by Corben. It's kind of weird texture down the bottom. It almost looks like it wasn't meant to fit this. Yeah, I don't think it probably was. We'll look at the scale initially, and pretty good at drawing everything though from the get-go. He makes it all work. Stuff like explosions. The lettering is always a little strange, but it's unique to him. Always like great creature designs. And another great airbrush color illustration by Corben on the back. This is an issue of Hot Stuff, number 5. Again, the big lizard trope, and I think the Corben story in here is just this creature attacking kind of an Aztec village. Some of the other art in here isn't great. It's kind of like really dodgy air cell. It's like Dennis Beauvais if Dennis Beauvais wasn't great. Warlock 5. So we can skip through this. It's kind of power comics, I suppose. Shard, 1977. Here's your giant lizard from the cover, and then you're gonna have this beast creature who seems to reoccur throughout some of the other stories in another artist's hand. I think Corben obviously inspired a whole generation of artists, so you do sometimes see kind of a mimicry in of his style, but no one can really quite achieve the effects Corben could achieve on the page. His modeling and textures of his characters and the worlds he creates. Yeah, it's in there. This Arnold guy was obviously trying to do his best, but yeah, you can see really just the differences between Corben's work and people who might be trying to be inspired or imitate his. This is Bizarre Sex from number 5 from Kitchen Sink, and this is a panel from Pilgor, or Bodyssey in English, but it's a pretty crazy cover. Cool colors, and then all these ladies worshipping this giant worm. I think this is mostly just black and white art in here. And it's more classic kind of underground stuff. You even have some chrome here. It's almost funny that Corben fits into the underground comics scene, because his work is very different from your Chromes and Spain Rodriguez. But obviously there's a huge and great range of artists from the era, so you get quite a bit of it in here actually. Don't even see any Corben in here. Maybe he's just on the cover. But I'd be into that just for the cover. It's great. And a pretty funny back cover too. This was 1984. And I think this is a Warren publication. It's the first issue, and you've got Corben on the front. And he's got a couple of stories in here. Some Joe Ortiz. Mutant World appears in here. Yeah. Which is Jan Strad and Corben's one of their kind of first big team ups. And I'd say maybe DC, or not DC, Dark Horse will do a reprint of this. And Son of Mutant World also. Color in this is a little bit clearer than some of the other stuff we looked at, but it's always fun to have a look at these different publications and the treatments. This looks pretty great. There's some other really nice artwork in these 1984s. Rudy Nabri. Cool. And then there's 2 issues of Creepy, which is obviously a Warren publication, and I just really like the covers on these. Again, you have your lady and your big lizard, which is definitely a recurring theme, as we've seen throughout this sampling. And there's usually a bit of black and white Corben stuff in here. And horror stories also in Creepy and Eerie. And these are issues from 1981 and 1982. Probably around the time that I think Corben establishes Fantacore Press, his own publication. Got this sort of cockroach story. It's almost like Kafkaesque. From that again. Always really good at these, like, just visceral, melting textures. He's very good at selling texture. He describes his work as being sensual. There's definitely a sensual aspect to it. It was accused of being pornographic in the past, which he didn't like. And I think it's also been described as being horny. Maybe David Cho said Corben's artwork is horny, which I don't think you could disagree with. But this is, look at that cover. This kind of big, lizardy slug monster with a little caravan trailer down here. That was pretty much why I bought this. And then just some black and white newsprint art on the inside. So yeah, there you have it. My collection of Corben's Underground Comics. I'm sure there's a lot more, but these are the ones I have, and just some of the covers that attracted me to Corben initially. You can see these around, and you know, you grab them and you want to know what the hell's going on inside. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't, but might look at that for just a sampling of 70s color. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and yeah, catch you in the next video.